Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 21, brought to you by Sterling Auto Group. I'm Joshua Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Jason Leskiw, our Preps reporter.
What's happening?
We are here to break down, step away from football a little bit and break down a lot of the soccer and volleyball happenings around the league. We will have the full playoff breakdown in Friday's Preps Plus Prep Kickoff section as far as football goes, with every league and all the playoff scenarios and all that stuff. So I'll try to keep the football segment of this fairly short this week. We also have our long girls soccer coach Teresa Aloe in here later today to speak with Jason, so we'll also have that for you on this week's podcast. But playoffs are pretty much in full swing, start Saturday, with a lot of our district tournaments starting up, and then football playoffs begin next Friday. So we're in the thick of it. State volleyball's only 2 weeks away. Yeah. State cross country a week away. So we're right in the thick of everything. So that's kind of what's happening on this week's podcast. Like I said, I do want to keep the football segment short, but I will start there with football. Thoughts on number 1 ranked Kalama after watching them against Toledo last week?
They're just going to win the table. They're the 2B state champions. Yeah. So I have no doubts after this last week.
Certainly a couple teams on the east side, Liberty, obviously one of those teams, but that Kalama defense, I think 21's the most they've let up all season, and the defense is good. The defense is very good. So they're certainly the favorites right now. I was at the Highway 30 Hootenanny, and that was the craziest game I've ever seen in my life. It was kind of weird. Dawson Carr had this incredible catch to end the first half, this 63-yarder that wasn't even targeted toward him. It bounced up in the air. He was 15 yards behind the play, kept tracking it, ended up just picking up the ball at the perfect time and running it in. And you think, okay, Klotzkenai just played about the best they can possibly play in the first half, and it's tied 14-14. Rainier comes out, they make it 2 scores within the first 3 minutes, and you're going, okay, this is Rainier's to win. And Klotzkenai scores 20 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, including 1 on a double reverse and 1 on a running back pass. And I had to tweet out Tim Warren is a genius. I had no other words. But what a win from Klotzkenai. And you have to think, with the talent level of both of those teams, you have to think they're poised to make significant runs. Klotzkenai takes home the league championship for the first time since 2014. They'll host a state playoff game. Right now it looks like Rainier will actually have to travel, which is crazy. So, but I think those are 2 teams that can make serious runs in the OSA state playoffs this year.
Absolutely.
Aside from that, I want to get your quick thoughts on who do you think outside of Kalama, Klotzkenai, Rainier, that we've already talked about, is poised to make deep state runs this year?
I think that Wahkiakum stands a chance. I think I have zero doubt that Kalama is the state champion, but I think as we've seen recently, actually, we saw this with girls basketball just not long ago too, that Kalama and Wahkiakum ended up going head to head in a state semifinal game. I think that's possible. I think Wahkiakum will have to play their best football. I mean, I think that goes for everybody, but especially Wahkiakum coming up. They're undersized, and their roster's bigger this year than it has been, in most years, but they have the talent, and so I think they can make a run. I kind of want to say Woodland. I wanted to say Woodland. I say, it seems like I say this every week. They got the talent. Can they be consistent? I think the key there too will be for the Beavers to not force Wyatt Harsh to like save the universe from everything that is or ever could be evil, like, which is what I think in the games that they've lost, that's been one of the things. If Wyatt Harsh can take the open receiver, do the things that football players need to do when the defense is giving you a 5-yard pass and it's 2nd and 7, take the 5-yard pass. Don't throw it 30 yards downfield into double coverage. If that could be done, I think Woodland can go quite a ways. But I've said that a lot.
Yeah, I think pretty much around the entire state, there's just a lot of parity. I mean, you heard Steve Amrine talk about it a lot just within the GSHL 3A, but I just really think around the state you're not seeing as many just absolute dominant teams. You see the one, maybe two across each classification, but you look at that Southwest 2B League, I could see PWV, Adna, Napavine, Toledo, Rainier, Wahkiakum, Kalama, Ilwaco, South Bend. I could see any one of those teams making a run or winning on any given day. I just think that there's a lot of good teams, but not a lot of great teams this year, and so that I think will make it very interesting. Especially like you take a team like Nacelle, I think they could make some things happen, especially having the preparation game of Sunnyside Christian this week, Sunnyside Christian has put together a fantastic campaign, and they're ranked number 2 in the state. And I think Nacelle, they may not get the win this week, but I think that's a huge preparation for weeks to come. And they get a bye week here, so that's nice for them. Get some guys healthy. Although I'm sure Jeff Eaton would love to be playing.
Yeah.
As far as volleyball, soccer goes, you were at Civil War Soccer earlier this week. Mark Morris did, in fact, with that win, punch their spot into the pigtail game, which is happening as we speak over in Aberdeen. Thoughts on Ari Long and Mark Morris going into the district playoffs?
I think despite losing their final regular season game of the year, Ari Long kind of goes into the tournament with momentum. They have, between Abby Anderson and a couple other girls on the team, they have some of the most extreme talent. When you take each team's top 2 players or whatever, Ari Long between Anderson and kind of a toss-up who the second player would be, but that says how good they are. So, especially soccer, if you have a couple true, elite players, that'll take you all the way. They're a threat to anybody they play. I was really impressed with Mark Morris, as was Teresa Aloe, as was their own coach Eric Maxey. I think he knew that they had it in them, and just hadn't played a full 80 minutes of soccer, of truly really really good soccer, and that's something they did this past week. If they keep that up, and they know what they have to do, and it's evident from early in October to this week how much they've improved in that short span. It's almost like I saw 2 different teams in those Civil War matches. And so if they play like that, they can make a run. I think Ari Long's the better team between those 2. But they can also threaten a lot of other teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that 2A district plays out. I think outside of maybe Black Hills and River, there's just a lot of teams that are real close together. Ari Long obviously has to go take on Black Hills on the road Saturday in that first round game, and then if they lose that one, they have to win 3 straight loser out matches, and that's always hard thing to do in that district tournament. So I think they have a lot of really good players, and you know, Abby Anderson's a great player and Seattle Pacific commit. I just don't know if they have that like go-to scorer that they can, you know, in a loser-out game. I've covered so many district tournaments where a team has to win 3 straight loser-out games, and it's bound to happen where a couple of them are going to come down to the final minutes, and the teams that tend to have success, they have the like 1-star scorer who's going to decide to whip a shot from 25 yards out, and it happens to go in, type of deal. So I think it'll be a tough road for them, especially with that first round matchup against Black Hills, but certainly anything is possible. And now we'll go to that interview that Jason had with RA Long soccer coach Teresa Aloe.
All right, I'm here with Teresa Aloe. Am I pronouncing that?
It's Aloe.
Okay. Sometimes between maybe it's you know, sunburn lotion, or it throws me off. But
that's it. Exactly that.
All right. RA Long, girls soccer coach. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, right on. So first, let's start. One of the things that I'm always curious to hear, for pretty much any sport outside of maybe football, because that's my thing, but you know, the football where you don't use your feet, is what makes a good soccer player.
Yeah. What I can tell you is only from my experience and as a player and as a coach, and really the thing that, in my experience, that I found is what makes a quality soccer player or good soccer players, are they coachable? That's a huge thing. Are they coachable is the biggest. Are they coming into season prepared? That's another biggie, that, you know, it's hard in small communities for kids to get outside of our area and play. So if they're leaving town and preparing themselves for our team, it's really helpful, and not only preparing by playing a lot of soccer, but also fitness. You know, we've seen a lot of fitness issues, and then that causes some injuries. So really, coachability, you know, their attitude, how they are as a player to coach, how well they're prepared as a soccer player, and then are they fit, you know. That's about it. Can they be a good teammate? All of that stuff that they can learn as we go. I mean, it's always nice to have really good kids, which I do, but kids aren't perfect and they make mistakes. So being a good teammate is things we always learn about as the season goes on. So yeah, I would say those are the most important things to me as a coach. And you know, every kid, you want them to have support from not only their teachers, your staff, your admin, but their family, if they can have it. And you know, and so those are important as well. But I would say those layers are important, but those 3 main things for me are what help.
And as far as you know, soccer skills go, is there any one skill that trumps all others in your opinion, whether it be dribbling or passing or?
For me, in my opinion, I would say they need a lot of time on the ball, which is dribbling and passing, those 2 things. But first touch is something that you hear a lot of coaches, if a player doesn't have a great first touch. So a lot of time on the ball is really important, because you want them to be so comfortable that it starts to become memory, and they're not really thinking about every touch, they're just doing it. So repetition is really good, and doing things over and over again is really good.
And what about one thing that's, and I totally understand what you're saying about first touch. That's always my problem is anytime I've ever played, I might get the ball and then I tap it with either my toe or any other part of the wrong part of my foot, and then it goes basically to the opponent right away.
Totally.
What about turning when a player gets the ball in close quarters and they either got to turn upfield? Or...
it depends on your formation. If you play with 1 forward, you don't want forwards turning too early, because if they turn too early, it's them versus say 3 or 4, so 1v4. And so if you're playing with 1 forward, you kind of want them to hold up the ball. If there's low pressure, they can turn. But if they have pressure on their back, you want them to hold it up, either make a drop pass or hold it a little bit. But turning, turning can be, you can get really good at it, 2 or 3 really great turns.
Okay.
But it depends on the pressure behind you.
Right.
So, yeah, we want to be able to turn the ball, but sometimes you don't need them to if you don't have 2 other forwards up there with them. Now, if you had a different formation and you had another forward to get it to, you might turn more often.
Okay.
Our forward hasn't been required to turn as much, but then that changes game per game depending on the pressure that we receive and who we're playing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And kind of transitioning to districts and state. First, you guys have had a lot of success this year. What's been the root of that?
Well, I tell you, we came into the season with a lot of experience. The one thing we didn't have was depth.
Okay.
So we had our experience, but we didn't have the bench with the same experience. We had no depth on our bench. So we're really the starting 11, and then you have 2 really great subs, but we don't have, like some teams, 5 or 6 players on our bench ready to go in at the same level as the girls on the field. So I would say our biggest thing is we had a lot of experience, and then we kind of created depth throughout our season, just working on things and created depth with the players that we had. And they had to battle through some injuries, but kudos to them. They won some big games, and so I give that credit to the players. So I think we just gained more confidence as the season went on.
Okay.
So, which is great, and that's on them. They've done that. So it's a strange league,
Right.
because the strongest team, in my opinion, is Hawkinson.
Okay.
But Hawkinson has had some funny losses, not to us, unfortunately, but to some other teams.
Right.
And so it's made it come down to where they're not very consistent. And so it's come down to the last games as to where people were falling in the bracket.
Right.
So you had to wait till the matches were over, where usually you kind of knew who was locked into first, second, and sometimes third.
Okay.
So.
All right. Maddie Wolf and Abby Anderson, kind of piggybacking on what you were saying just now, have been huge for you guys. What makes Abby such a dominant player? I think she's, from what I've seen so far this season, is probably the most dominant in Cowlitz County, and probably a little bit beyond that, even for 3A school or even a 4A school in Vancouver.
Yeah, she works hard. She works hard at her game,
Okay.
and she's playing all the time. She's traveling to play, but Abby is smart, and I
Okay.
think that's really what has made her. I mean, she just makes smart decisions. She's great. I mean, she has probably leading us in assists. She's just smart, and she knows how to draw defenders in and when to release the ball. She knows when to go around. Is she perfect? No, she's had, I would say Tuesday night was a hard night on our whole team. We didn't make the best decisions as a team. And individually, they didn't make the best decisions, but that's a good learning experience too. But for Abby, she's just smart. And the other thing is she stays pretty positive. She doesn't get down. She keeps pushing. And I think her attitude helps a lot as well. So she's smart, great attitude. She works hard, and she's always playing soccer. She's always down in her club team with FC Portland. She's training. She's coaching a younger Timber Baron team, the one that you saw out there the other night, the U12 girls.
Right.
She's one of the coaches for that team. So I think that's real. And she's fast, and she's tenacious. And her size, there were coaches that doubted her because of her size, I think, other coaches. And she kind of last season proved that wrong, that your size doesn't have to necessarily,
dictate how well you look.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. The 5'8" guy, 5'9", depending on what shoes I'm wearing.
That's right. That's right.
So, what are some of I know not long ago you said that, that you haven't seen too many teams outside of our area here, but so I guess we'll stick with maybe Southwest Washington. Who are some of the teams to watch over the next month?
So in our area, I would say Hawkinson, Columbia River, those are the top teams in our area, but you never count out Ridgefield. Obviously can't count out Mark Morris. I mean, they played really well the other night. And then looking at the other conference, the Evergreen area is Black Hills and Tumwater. We'll see how that goes on Saturday night. Right. Hopefully, but the kicker to it is if we do well on Saturday night and win, we could face Hawkinson again on Tuesday. Woo-hoo. So
right, the spoils of winning, right? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
In regards to the state tournament coming up and districts too, do players have to kind of enter a different kind of mentality or step up to another level there?
It depends on where they're at. Like sometimes teams go backwards. I would say, you just depends on where you're at. I'm hoping our experience this is our third year in the playoffs, and so I'm hoping our experience will help us.
Okay.
We won the first games the last 2 times, and then ended up losing our second game, and we're out and never went further. But we were in Aberdeen twice last 2 years, and we felt like we were doing really well against those teams and ended up in penalty shootouts. So I'm hoping some experience that we've had the last 2 seasons will help us. And we just have to play like we know we can play, know. But I would say the mentality is, unless they're struggling right now, keep going, just keep pushing. And if you had a bump, then you obviously got to kind of figure out where that's at. But I think just keep playing, keep working hard and pushing forward. I don't know there has to be anything different if you're doing well and
right.
Unless you've had like something go wrong and you feel like you need to take a few steps to kind of figure that out. So
okay,
yeah.
How much does strategy play a part in some of those games?
It plays a lot. It just depends on who you're playing, obviously, and you just have to kind of, as a coach, you have to make some decisions on what kind of team you're playing sometimes in the moment. First time we played Mark Morris, we didn't expect them to be so far back defensively.
Right.
We expected way more pressure. So then our strategy changed. We were planning on playing a lot through the middle. It ended up being Sadie had time to turn. So things changed, and you want players to catch on to that and know that. But sometimes they don't, and they're doing what they've been asked by you. And so halftime, you have to kind of go over that. You're hoping it clicks with them and they see it, and their strategy kind of changes as well, where they kind of get it and naturally go, okay, this is different than what I expected. This is different than our last game. But definitely, we have to strategize and plan. And that's why it's nice to know a little bit about Black Hills, to kind of who to expect. And so we'll have a plan, but we'll see what happens. We'll go into that game and may have to make some changes, and maybe we make them quicker than later. Sometimes I feel like as a coach I've waited too long to make changes.
Right.
That could have been my problem last Tuesday. Is maybe I should have made some changes early on. I'll never know.
Right.
But
right.
You hope I can learn from it as well. Not only the players, but the coaches learn too. So.
Right. And that's been a game, the Civil War games, at least this year, where it seemed like there were a lot of strategy changes from what you guys had seen from them. I think this last game this week, it seemed like they made some changes to give you guys a different look. And
yeah,
how much does that, generally speaking, confuse a soccer player?
It's not too bad if they have coaches and they have players on their team that can adapt quickly to change. I think it's okay. It depends on the level they're used to playing at.
Got it.
You want them to catch on quickly. It shouldn't take too long if the coaches get it and kind of say, okay, we've got to change things here and fix something here. And, it could be your defense. It doesn't necessarily mean your attackers. Do you need 4 back? Well, if they only have 1 forward, maybe you only need 3 back. Things like that. Sometimes you have to get into the match and go, okay, now this is where we're at. Let's go ahead and change some things around. And sometimes you wait too long as a coach and go, I wish I would have done that quicker,
Right.
But hopefully I've learned and we'll be more prepared.
Right. It seems like there's very few in any sport, like natural players, whether it be baseball, basketball, soccer, where someone just has a unique feel for that sport. How many have you seen at RA Long?
This season?
No, just in your entire career. How many?
This is my 3rd season.
Or I should rephrase that. In your life, anywhere, not just RA Long. I mean,
Oh gosh.
How rare is a truly natural soccer player?
I think it depends on. I think it's rare, but I also think it depends on their love for the game.
Right.
If it's all they can think about, all they want to do, because then they'll put more into it. It's like the Abbeys. It's Lisa Sari from the past. There's other players. Maddie Wolf. Peyton Seals works really hard. She's a defensive player for us. She's an attacking player for her club team. You know, it just depends on their passion for the game. It is rare because kids are torn between so many different sports, and they don't have they don't want to focus on one all the time, and they have to make that decision around their freshman, sophomore year, and that's hard for some players to do, so they end up never doing it. So, but I would say it's, there are those players. There's a handful of them that I've seen the last 3 years at RA Long. I would say there's one or two on my past club teams that I've coached. Those players always stand out. They're usually your leaders.
Right.
They're usually the kids that are running on their own, playing on their own, doing other soccer things,
Right.
So whether it be a club team or playing indoor or just playing backyard soccer all the time.
The type of person when someone says, "Oh, I work so hard," and then they think, "Hard work? What are you talking about? That was fun. That wasn't work."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they put just so much time into it. I would say the time and dedication. And then there's a part that I think is really key, and it's who's fierce, who can handle getting hit in the face, who can handle getting knocked down and get back up. There's those fierce competitors. There's some players that they get knocked down and they can't shake it.
Right.
So they have to have that part as well. Are they fierce enough to get through something that's tough? So, and I see that in a few of my players that I have now. They're tough kids.
Yeah.
And mentally, physically, and they're good soccer players, and they are rare.
Right.
But those are the kids that just want it all the time. Can't get enough of it.
Right. And didn't Abby take a ball to the face?
She did.
Okay, I thought
she
so.
did. And she took a minute, and she was right back out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if she was going to take a few steps and fall backwards after that.
Yeah. She took a
nasty.
direct ball to the face within like 2 or 3 yards of the person kicking it. So, yeah. But, I mean, just that's a great example of, she just kept pushing. There's people that would have wanted to come off, and that's okay. Not saying that's bad. I'm just saying those are the differences in the people that are really fierce and can handle a lot of things happening all at once, and they can get through it, still push on.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's those teams and those players that win games in the end. Abby's done that for us before. It wasn't Tuesday, but she's done it for us before. And so was Maddie Wolf a couple years ago against Mark Morris. Her freshman year, scoring a big goal. It's those kind of players that when they know it's coming down to it and there's seconds, minutes left, and they can still win a game. They still haven't lost control and haven't lost their mind thinking it's over,
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And then my last question here is kind of with, we were just talking, you were just mentioning kind of when a player has the option of playing different sports or not, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if you followed the U.S. Soccer's new, they got some strange new guidelines, and I'm not super familiar with it, but basically they're trying to make kids choose club soccer, high school soccer, or no soccer. And I'm not sure to what extent they want to implement some of these things, but
Yeah, I heard a little bit about players not wanting to play high school soccer and just focus on their club team. The question I have for that is, and here I am a high school coach, so of course I want them playing high school soccer.
Right.
I have a vested interest in that. But what else are they doing? What's offered right now? A lot of the clubs aren't playing. They might be practicing, but are there really any camps or anything like that going on that they can get to that will help prepare them for that next level? I don't know. I haven't researched it enough to know what's out there. I think if you can play, there's only very few times in your life that you get to represent your high school or your college team,
right.
and your college, your school. I think that you should do it if you can. I think it's disappointing when somebody says you have to make a choice, because how many of our kids are really going to go play for the U.S. team?
Right. Yeah.
I have a lot of parents that think their kids are.
Yeah. In all sports. In all sports. Yeah.
And I don't mean my parents. I mean Longview, Kelso, Cowlitz
yeah.
County. A lot of parents think their kids are going to, they're going to be there.
I think 10% of the parents on every team that we cover, baseball, basketball, football,
Absolutely.
have an expectation that D1 is a small step, and
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
All right, yeah, and I noticed too that in regards to that, and I don't know how. I know that in football and baseball and basketball, and I'm sure soccer's pretty similar, and same with maybe volleyball or any other sport. There's nothing that parallels in-game experience as far as preparing and improving and that sort of thing. So I am kind of surprised that an organization, especially one that's soccer's grown nationally by leaps and bounds, and especially at the pro level over the last 10 years. I think in 2004 or so, the U.S. Soccer almost folded, and forget who it was. He was the owner of an NFL team or an NBA team also. I forget who it was though. Basically has bought out the remaining pro teams in America, and now I believe there's more pro soccer teams in America than there are basketball or baseball teams.
Mm-hmm.
So and
yeah, I don't, there's probably a really good philosophy behind it, and they have their own perspective on how that would be helpful to them. Obviously, I'm at the high school local level, and
right.
So to me, it's like, if you're a soccer player and you love it and you eat and breathe soccer, I believe you should be playing for your high school team. I know there's kids that don't, and that I feel bad for them because I feel like they're missing out on an opportunity. And even if it's harder and tough and it's like, oh, there's so much time, it still can be worth it. You can learn so much from it. But then they could come back and say, well, there's injuries, there's things like that, and they're concerned about those things. So I get it. I mean, I see that there's another side to it. I personally just want kids that are, if they're soccer players and they're playing at a higher level, I'd want them to represent their school if they can.
Right.
So.
Yep. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. All right. Well, thanks, Teresa, for joining us here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Right on. And yeah, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled state tournament talk.
Cool. Thanks.
And we're back. On the 3A by district girls soccer, Kelso is in that. Kelso's kind of had a rough start to the season, but then went on that huge run in the middle of the year. But they're in pretty much the same spot as last year. They are taking on Spanaway Lake in Lacey on November 1st, so that would be next Wednesday. And they have to win 2 games. They have to beat Spanaway Lake and Gig Harbor to make the state playoffs. They are another team that I think has a lot of talent, but doesn't have the go-to scorer like they did last year with Kaylee Murray, who's now at LCC. So that's a tough road for the Kelso girls soccer team, one they've had to go through before. We'll see if they can finally get there. But Gig Harbor, Spanaway Lake I think is a toss-up. Gig Harbor is definitely a tough team to beat.
But I'm right there with you.
And then in the 2B girls, Kalama enters as the number 3 seed, and kind of a funky system. The top 4 teams out of the Central 2B League, since that's the only league in the district, they play loser-out winner state matches in the district semifinals, if you will, which begs the question, why play the regular season? Because it's in soccer, anything can happen. It's a one bounce here or there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what good did it do Adna win the league championship, and what good did it do Acosta aside from making the playoffs? First to fourth, you're all in the same boat. But that's the way it works. I I think it's kind of weird. I think a lot of leagues are starting to not place stock in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like 8 teams make it out of Central 2B volleyball, and I would like to see the majority of the season that play a bigger role, that play an impact. Maybe say, Adna, for winning the league, you advance to state.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put you in the district championship. These other 3 teams have to play off for the final spot or whatever.
Yeah, I really hope that Washington State high school athletics is kind of coming to a crossroads here with some of these things. It's like my biggest pet peeve here, just to bring in football also. Winlock has won one game this year. Just one single game. And it's coming down to the final regular season week to decide whether.
2.
Is it 2?
They beat Mossy Rock and Chief Lesha. They beat both those teams.
One league game. Though.
One league game.
Right. Okay. Sorry. I should have clarified that. Okay. You freaked me out for a second. But they're still, you get my point, right? So even if you win 2 games, yeah, you're not a contender. It's just wasting everybody's time. To me, it's wasted money. And the same with having a 15, 16 game regular season if none of it matters.
Yeah, and I get like wanting to get kids more opportunities to play in those sorts of things. I understand the point, but when you take so much stock out of the regular season, like most of these football leagues, you're looking more than half the leagues get in, or half the league gets in, and it's not like the NBA where more than half the league gets in, but the 7th and 8th seed are going to go get blasted by the 1 and 2 seed.
Right.
This is high school sports where there are a few dominant teams who are going to kind of walk away with it, but these are high school kids. An injury here, something there is going to completely impact something in a 1 game situation like soccer and football are. With volleyball, at least you get some extra sets to recompose and all that stuff.
And if you're running around for 75 minutes or a full 80 minutes over 15, 16 games, 5, 6 of them with soggy fields, it's really easy to sprain an ankle, pull a hammy, and just totally offset everything.
And the thing is, parents always will write in and they'll always say, well, the kids work so hard, they should be recognized for this or that or whatever. Like, how about we start getting districts and leagues to start recognizing the hard work that the teams who excelled in the regular season put in?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe we need to go to RPI.
You did not just say that.
But that's a topic for another day. Kalama does take on Life Christian at Centralia High School on Tuesday, or in John Bates's words, Spooky Night. And that's loser at winner state. Should be a very interesting game for the defending state runner-ups. Jumping quickly over to volleyball, Kelso volleyball, I watched them the other night, lose to Prairie. They go into the bi-district tournament as GSHL's number 2 seed. They're a good team. They have a lot of talent, but again, I in high school, one dominant player can go such a long way. Mm-hmm. And Kelso has 6 or 7 really good players, but they don't have the hitter that can take over a game.
Yeah.
And with so many good teams in that bi-district tournament, as year after year has shown, Kelso's only made it through that tournament twice to make the state tournament. It's gonna be a tough road. 6 of the looks like 16 teams do make the state tournament, but there's a lot of talent, including the team that just lost to Prairie in that tournament. So that'll be interesting. But I think Ari Van Horn has started to make progress with those with that team and is putting the team in the right direction. But they do lose a lot of seniors. But I think she's guiding the program in the right direction. As far as Woodland volleyball goes, they sealed their first league title since 2005 and will go into the district tournament as GSHL's number 1 seed. The usual faces are going to be their competition. You're going to have Ridgefield, Tumwater, Black Hills, River as the main opponents. That starts next Thursday and continues on Saturday. 3 teams out of that make state, so important for them to get their first win, and then they only have to win 1 more after that, so that helps. But Tumwater's going to be tough. They're the defending state champions.
Is there a sport that school isn't really good at? I mean, I really wonder.
I don't think so, because they're good at golf and tennis and pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe swimming?
Swimming. That's something that most people don't pay attention to, isn't it?
So maybe swimming. But yeah, Woodland certainly, one of the favorites. I think they have a really good team. They were able to do a lot last season when they weren't expected to, so it'll be interesting now that they are the favorites per se, what they can do in that district tournament. The 1A, you've seen Castle Rock volleyball a lot this year. Right now they're playing a match with La Center for I want to say it's for the number 1 seed. I don't quite know the tiebreaker, but if La Center wins, then they're both tied with 1 loss. I don't know the tiebreaker for that. But what I was looking at today, what's crazy is only 2 teams out of that district advance to state. And you have Montesano, La Center, and Castle Rock. You've seen Castle Rock a lot last year or this year. How do they make sure they avoid, or what makes them, a team that's going to avoid the slip up that keeps them out of the state tournament?
I think they just got to stay true to the things that have made them so successful. If they do that, if they continue to throw out their regular season record and the differentials that they've won by and how many sweeps they've had this year, they'll be fine. We were talking about Kalama football and how talented they are. I think Castle Rock's the volleyball equal, at least in our area, about how dominant. And this is a extremely dominant team with a few extremely dominant players and a really, really good supporting cast. So, they're a team that, as long as they don't, let their ego, get away from them and that sort of thing, they should be fine.
And you know what I'm seeing here? It looks like Elma's actually the number 1 seed out of the Evergreen. So very well could come down to Castle Rock and La Center as the top 2 teams, which would be to no one's surprise. I think something that helps Castle Rock is just their depth. They have 8 or 9 players they can rotate in, and we talk about a dominant player. Anna Dolan is certainly that. So they have depth and dominant player, and Zoe Noggles really come on this year. They're a really, really good team.
They could move probably better than any volleyball team in our area.
Yeah. And then I'll quickly talk about Rainier volleyball. They're hosting Saturday state play-in match with Dayton. As is the case with Rainier for the past few years, as Brianna Edwards goes the Columbians. They do have a much better supporting cast this year. They've really improved in that aspect, but Brianna's going to get 75 swings on Saturday. And so that's going to really come down to, can Dayton block her or block her enough to stay in matches? And so that's kind of going to be the case with Rainier trying to get back to Forest Grove. Mike Edwards certainly confident if they're, that they're going to advance to Forest Grove, and once they're there, everyone's going to see who the best player in the state is. Those are his words. He's pretty confident that his daughter is that player.
Yeah.
As far as the 2B volleyball goes, you saw Tudor Lake and Kalama last night. Your thoughts on both those teams as they enter the district tournament on Saturday?
Well, number one, Tudor Lake played a very bad game, and they I think their second set they lost 25-7 if I remember correctly. That's not indicative of who they can be on a good night. On a good night, they're right up there with the best in the state. The problem for them, I think, has been that they haven't had many of those nights this year, and so kind of the same with. They're in that woodland boat, so what they need is there. They just need it. They need to figure out how to get it together when they really need it and keep it going. Kalama defending champs in the 2B. It's hard to imagine. I didn't get to see any of their games last season, but it's hard to imagine that they lost their 4 top players after watching them last night. Kapia Wetmore, she's 6'3". She's there. They have a lot of talent in other areas, but to me, she's their most dominant player. And I believe she had 9 stuff blocks last night. That's asked Jenny O'Neill. Hey, is this? And I've talked to her about Kapia Wetmore through the season a little bit for our roundups, and but I had to ask again, is this just after seeing it, is this par for the course? And yeah, basically. And so I would imagine, are going to make another very deep run. I would love to see at state a Mossy Rock Kalama reunion, and I don't think that's too far out of the range of possibilities.
Certainly. And yeah, Kapia Wetmore, she does have the same inconsistencies, a young player goes through. But when she's on, she's at the 2B level, pretty darn impossible to stop. What's interesting, so 8 teams out of the Central make the district tournament, and you have 6 teams advance to state. I would say probably at least 5 of those are going to be from the Central. Pacific offers, Life Christian and Owako and South Bend, PWV. But the Central 2B consistently outperforms the Pacific 2B once we get to the district tournament. What's interesting for Tudor Lake is that they're paired with PWV, Adna, and Life Christian in their quarter bracket. That's a certainly winnable bracket, which would put them, onto state and, into the district semifinals, on the first day. The rest of the brackets we're still going to figure out based on the Kalama Mossy Rock game tonight, as well as the Pacific 2B tiebreakers. But, the Wakaika, Milwaukee, Kalama, will all be in that. And certainly each of those teams, particularly, Wakaika, Kalama, Tudor Lake, certainly have chances to make some noise. I would imagine the district championship probably be Kalama Mossy or Napavine Mossy or Napavine Kalama, one of the combination of those 3. Which is probably to nobody's surprise this year, except for maybe Kalama. Jenny's done a great job with that group. I don't know if many expected them to just respond after losing. Like, you could tell they still had talent around, but when you lose such influential players, that's a hard thing to recover.
And they were a big team last year, and this year their Capio is big, and then everybody else is average at best. And so that's it for this week's podcast, episode 21, aka the Blackjack episode. We will be back next week with the first round of district football / winter state round, and all sorts of other things that are going on, including we'll probably know at that point who's made state volleyball. So that's it for this week. We want to thank Teresa Aloe for stopping by, and thanks to Sterling Auto Group for sponsoring this week's podcast, and we'll be back at you next week.